What is up? What is up, boxing fans around the world, FightHype family? As always, it's your man Sean Zittel holding it down from the illustrious, cutting edge, elaborate headquarters here in Las Vegas for FightHype Live. And I'm joined by, a hell of a journalist, a guy who's been working with us at FightHype on the East Coast, holding it down in New York, but he's gone around the country, really, beyond just New York, covering fights. Also works for Boxing Scene, along with FightHype, one of the industry leaders in the sport. And it's episode 2 of Fight Take. We got some topics to go through. First, though, let me introduce my man Hans Themistode, all the way from New York City. What's up, Hans?
What's going on, brother? Glad to be here. Like you said, Fight Hype family with boxing scene, BWAA. Really happy to be here, man. Let's get it going.
Man, did I get it right on New York City, or are you from one of the other boroughs?
New York, Brooklyn, but we'll let you rock. So same thing.
Yeah. Well, Brooklyn's different than Manhattan. My old grandma, God rest her soul, she used to tell my family if they went into Manhattan, "Oh, you're going into New York," like Brooklyn wasn't already New York. So,
Yeah, for sure. It's a different boroughs, but it's the first show. Well, first show for me, so I'm gonna let it rock. Next time, please say Brooklyn. So we'll let it
oh,
go though.
absolutely, Brooklyn stand up. So, wait. You know what? While I still got you, what part of Brooklyn are you representing, Hans?
Well, I live in Canarsie now, but born and raised in Brownsville though, so you know how it goes over there.
Oh yes, I know too well. If you know boxing, you know too well the great fighters that come from Brownsville. So
For sure, you know that Mike Tyson, Daniel Jacobs was from there. Zab Judah still goes over there, so you know how it goes. Shushu was over there as well, so
was
a lot of
Riddick
guys.
Bowe Brownsville or was he Bed-Stuy? I think he was Bed-Stuy.
I think it was Bed-Stuy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was Bed-Stuy.
All right. Well, I'm from Bensonhurst. Not as many good fighters from Bensonhurst as Brownsville, but we had a rep too back in the day, but
Not really, but
long time ago. So, but what's up, everybody? What's up, chat? Now that I've introduced my man Hans Themistode, we can go ahead and get to our first topic of the day, which isn't Frank Martin and Shakur Stevenson. It's still talking some Crawford-Spence. Obviously, some news of Bomac came out yesterday, but my man Hans, he made quite the bold pick for this rematch of Crawford and Spence. Go ahead and take it away, Hans.
um, I mean, look, a lot of people, yourself included, is expecting Crawford to pretty much do the same thing to Spence at 154 pounds. I did take Crawford initially for the first fight. I think in the rematch, I think Spence is going to find a way to pull it off. I think those extra 7 pounds is going to be extremely helpful for him. Not really necessarily trying to say or put on an excuse for Spence and say, hey, he was drained, blah, 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 whatever. But I do think it will be a huge difference. And I do expect Spence to pick up that win, man.
Well, I made a little bit of an analogy to football, saying when a superior team loses to an inferior team, they got to help them out a little bit. They got to meet them halfway, give up the ball, give up some turnovers, don't execute, come in overconfident, because if they come in 100%, they're going to beat the inferior team, and that's still how I feel about Crawford and Spence. Spence needs some help from Crawford if he's going to pull off winning that rematch. He first needs Crawford to come back down to earth because he was out of this world July 29th. He was not the Crawford that got hit with right hands by Mean Machine and Sean. And in the first round against Avanesian, he tuned it up a notch. He rose to the occasion, right? He took it up a notch or two. First thing Spence needs is for Crawford to come back down to earth a little bit. Be that guy who was getting hit with some right hands in his last couple of fights. And he needs some other things to go right, like this Bomac situation, can get Crawford off course. So I do liken it to football because without Crawford meeting him halfway, I think the best case scenario for Spence, and I understand, I'm not going to say he can't win a rematch because I'm not going to underestimate a champion, with the pride of Spence, but very unlikely. And I think his best case scenario, unless Crawford meets him halfway a little bit, is doing what Shane did with Winky and Forrest, what Deontay did with Fury in the third fight, what Jermaine Taylor did with Pavlik. I think that's the best case scenario for Spence realistically, that he makes it a much more competitive fight. But you tell me, how's he still going to deal with the counterpunching of Crawford? Even if he's hydrated at 54 and he's strong and his shots actually got some snap on him, what's he going to do to deal with the counterpunching, Hans?
I mean, that counterpunching is hell, man. I mean, that counterpunching was sharp as hell that night. But I mean, look, I also look at it as, I mean, Crawford, I mean, to me, and I think to everybody, he's a historically great fighter. But I just find it really hard to believe that he's 100 times better than Spence, man. Because the way he looked that night, he can't be 100 times better than Spence. Is Crawford the hardest hitting guy at 147? I mean, debatable, but maybe. But is he? Let's just say Boots is. Is Crawford? Does Crawford hit 100 times harder than Boots, or does he hit 100 times harder than like Danny Garcia? Because the way he was knocking Spence down, it just didn't really make any sense to me. And also during the fight, a big reason why I think Spence is going to win the rematch is because hopefully he'll be hydrated, he'll be all right. And in the first fight, if you really look at it, when Spence actually got in close, he wasn't really working, man. He was really getting in close and really just trying to like smother and really just trying to hold them. He wasn't really like letting off any combinations. He did in the second round pretty early after he got dropped in that first, came on pretty strong in that second round and looked pretty strong for about a minute, minute and a half. But I'm expecting him to do a lot more of that. I don't think he's gonna stay on the outside and try to jab him. I don't think he's gonna fight tentatively. I don't think he's gonna push out a tenuous jab. I think he's gonna go balls to the wall and really, all right, man. That counter punching, okay, it's gonna be hell, but I just think that Spence has a great chin, and I think that at 154, I think he will be able to stand up to that power a little bit more, man.
Yeah, maybe he can, but I think part of why he wasn't getting off the way you wanted him to when he got in range was the counters coming back his way. And then even some of the stuff you're talking about that he can do better in a rematch, you basically, from what I'm gathering, he'll be stronger, punches will be snappier at 54, he'll be able to take punches better. But basically it sounds like you think he's just going to turn it up a notch. He's just going to throw, and that doesn't end the countering opportunities of Crawford. And defense is the harder part of this sport, as you know. It's harder to get out of the way of a shot than it is to throw one. So how many strides can he make defensively to get out of the way of counter punches, even if he's still taking them well? If they're landing on the button, and his only real adjustment, in addition to being stronger and snappier, is just to turn it up and throw more punches, I don't know, man.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I mean, the counter punching is going to be the counter punching. It's going to be the same thing at 147, 54. If he moved up to 68, it's going to be the same thing even if he fights Canelo. Like, Crawford just has this magical thing where he can really just counter punch the hell out of you, man, and just really hit you in between shots, which is really, uh, it's going to be painful. But I just think that Spence is really the type of guy where it's just like, he's going to outwork you, man. His talent isn't, I don't think he has top 5 talent at the welterweight division, but he's gonna outwork you, man. And I think another factor that a lot of people aren't really realizing is, that was at least on paper, that was probably the biggest fight of the last decade. And the way he got embarrassed, his motivation got to be through the roof, man. Like, it has to be. And I know that doesn't really say much in terms of like X's and O's, but when you get your ass whooped like that in the biggest fight where everybody's watching, nah, brother, your motivation got to be through the roof. So I don't know. Call me crazy, call me dumb. I'm rocking with Spence on this one, man.
No, I know. He's a great father, and immediately the one person he was really talking to in the locker room was little baby boy, his son. So I know the motivation to show his son a better performance alone is huge motivation. And on the other side, to speak what you're talking about, what really is the motivation for Crawford the second time around? The first time around, motivation was through the roof. He feels like he's been frozen out for years. This is the opportunity he's been waiting on. It's a 50-50 fight, which means 50% of the people think you're going to lose. This time, you've had a parade. You're undisputed. Some people are saying you would have beaten Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? He's on Good Morning America. So, but
when you say that, though, at the same time, though, I mean, I guess if you want to say his motivation for the rematch isn't going to be as high as the first fight, but if he loses that second fight, all of that goes away. Ain't no more parade, or that parade will be kind of rendered kind of innocuous, or, there was no point having that. There was no point having him on all of these radio shows and all of these TV shows and whatever because he got whooped in the second fight. And then it makes it look like, okay, everything that certain people were saying in terms of he didn't look right, his face was pale, blah blah blah, and whatever. And I'm not going that far, but I don't care what anybody says, man. That was not the same Spence that fought everybody else, man. It just
Hans, what makes you think it'll be a better Spence when he took such a beating in that first fight? And then there's even people, Stephen A. Smith calling for retirement. There's people even worried about him, you know, mentally and everything with from the car accident and the damage and yeah.
yeah, but I mean, with all due respect to Stephen A, man, like the guy lost one fight and he lost badly. And Stephen A is an
He was
expert.
joined by Louis Farrakhan, to be fair.
He was, but I'm just saying, man, a guy like Stephen A, or even like other guys that are saying that he should retire. Look, man, like it happens in boxing when you get whooped, man. Like
Are you
it
saying
happens,
Farrakhan and Stephen A aren't boxing experts? Is that what you're trying to say?
for sure. Yeah. And sometimes you just get whooped, man. It happens. Like, I mean, shoot, if it was up to everybody else, maybe Pacquiao should have retired when he got flatlined by Marquez, man. But he
True.
still came back and come on now. So it'll be a different story, man. I don't think it's right to say that he should retire, though. I don't think so.
Quickly on this Bomac thing, I'm going to quickly touch on this, and then we'll go to Canelo. We'll talk about a little bit of Crawford and Canelo. Clearly, you don't even think that fight's going to happen because it sounds like you think we're going to get a trilogy between Crawford and Spence. So
For sure, 100%.
but Hans, you're a reasonable man, smart man, grown man. So you tell me if I'm just completely on some dumb shit. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but here's a thought that crossed my head with the Bomac situation, right? MTK, Daniel Kinahan, used to have a piece of Crawford, right? Used to get a piece. He seems to have been frozen out of that Crawford-Spence fight, right? He didn't get a piece of that action, right? Now Bomac goes overseas with Chris Eubank to help beat on a guy in Liam Smith who was once very, very close with Daniel Kinahan. Could that have been the fight? Okay, I'm salty because I got cut out of the big fight with Spence. Now you're gonna come over here with Chris Eubank and help beat the shit out of Liam Smith. You know, one of the guys I love that used to be my fighters too. Is there any chance that am I crazy for just the thought passing my head that there's something funny here with this Bomac situation?
Nah, I don't think you're crazy.
Not saying
I
it's
don't think
true.
you're
I'm just
crazy.
it's a thought.
Yeah, nah, I don't think it's a crazy thought. I mean, I wouldn't go that route. I I do find it just like really hard to believe that he goes from the States to the UK and they don't catch him with it. And then you go from the UK to the US and they do catch you with it, because that'll just pretty much mean that, okay, did he buy it in the UK? Well, why the hell would he buy it in the UK, man? It doesn't really make any sense to me, man. So I think we're kind of like on the same wavelength, but just two different like reasons though. But it does seem really weird to me, man.
Like, here's the thing too. Really smart people in boxing are saying, well, he may be used to traveling in the United States with a registered gun, loaded in a lockbox, approved by TSA and all that. But part of me is like, this man has been overseas, a decade ago with Ricky Burns and Crawford. He's been there before with Conor and Brook. But forget the pros. This man, Brian McIntyre, has probably flown out kids in the amateurs overseas for tournaments. That that happens all the time in the amateurs. Come on, I'm like, this guy may very well know international laws when it comes to stuff like that. He's been flying internationally probably since before Terence Crawford was famous because he's working with amateur kids. So again, something's like, I just don't know if it adds up.
No, I mean it's a really great point, especially when you talk about the whole amateur stuff. And like you said, man, like we've spoken to Bo Mac 2 million times before, and he's a really smart guy. I
Yes.
don't think he would ever do anything like that, man. It just doesn't make any sense. And now I think he's still going to be at least in jail in the UK until October 9th. And then who knows if he'll be like granted a bond or anything like that, which pretty much means that he'll be forced to stay in there until his quote unquote trial or anything that happens. And if it's anything like the States, that trial date could be like pushed back until like next year or something like that. So it's a tough one to say, but I'm just not buying that I'm just not buying it, man. It just seems too weird to me, man. I'm not buying that.
I'm definitely waiting for more information to come out. And yeah, man, it's a rough situation. But moving on to more Spence and Crawford talk. Crawford, has said in the past he'll fight Spence at 154, has no problem if Spence activates the rematch. But the real waves he's been making is with Canelo. So obviously you don't think we're going to see Crawford Canelo because you think Spence is going to win Spence Crawford too. But what do you think of Crawford Canelo if Crawford gets by Errol Spence? Are you like me? Are you like, it's a great fight, I get it. You guys fight this long for money and legacy, and there's more money and legacy pumped into Canelo Crawford than anything, but I'd rather see Boots get a shot and Benavidez get a shot at these two? What do you think of all that, Hans?
I mean, I agree with you about halfway. There's a lot of money involved, but technically, at least to me, there's not that much legacy. There's a legacy for Terence Crawford. You know what I mean? Like you beat Canelo, like, oh shit, this dude gained 21 pounds, moved up 3 weight divisions. Like for Canelo, there is really no big legacy for him. Even though, all right, you beat Terence Crawford, which is an all-time
He was a
win. But
lightweight.
exactly, like how many, not even just the lightweight thing, but how many people are gonna say, yo, it was his first time going to 168 and he gained 21 pounds, bro. Like there's really no legacy for Canelo. Now the money, do it for the money. Because I'm not mad at a guy like Tyson Fury for fighting Ngannou. I don't really want to see the fight, but they making a boatload of money, man. Like that's what they here for. So go do your thing, man. So I'm not mad at that. But the legacy thing, I wouldn't really be mad if Canelo passed on it, honestly. And I do want to see Boots get a shot, man. That's a damn fight, man. That's what I want to see.
Remember James Toney, Mike McCallum? I feel like that's Boots and Crawford.
Um, I don't know, man. It's kind of tough to say, only from the standpoint of I don't know. For me personally, it's always kind of hard for me to like get on somebody's wave, so to speak, if I haven't really seen you in the ring with at least somebody like decent, man. And not his fault, but Boots has fought. He had to fought anybody, man. Like literally anybody. Like I don't want to hear Thomas Delorme. Let's please not do that. Let's not talk about Villa. Let's not do that.
Why
But
not Via beat your man Rashidi? You were pumping up Rashidi versus Boots on FightHype, and now Romain Villa pulls off the upset, and the man gets nothing. He's not even solid. He's not even a dangerous guy.
I mean, he was. Come on, brother. That was first off. Rashidi should have got that win, man. Rashidi should have got that win. If Rashidi fought Boots, that would have been a much more competitive fight. I think Boots would have won the fight, but that's a way more competitive fight than Villa, a guy who's just gonna pretty much come forward extremely slow. You can see his shots coming a mile away. Like, do you really think that slow motion move that
I know
Jerron
which
did
one you're
against
talking
Villa?
about.
He's not doing that against Rashidi. He's not doing that. He'll probably beat him. He'll probably stop him, but he's not doing all of these theatrics against Rashidi, man. So yeah, I gotta see Boots with somebody good at least, man. It's tough.
I don't know, man. I love Bernard Hopkins. Jermaine Taylor didn't do anything. Bernard said, "Give the young man a chance, anyways. I hate Lou DiBella. Let's get it." So but you know,
I mean, we already know those type of stuff don't really happen though. But it's really frustrating, man. Like what does a guy like Boots do, anyways? Because even if
I think you know what I think would be his best move that nobody would see coming.
Mhm.
Talk to Espinoza, who also has a deal with Tim Tszyu. See if you can move up to 54 and fight Tszyu for the WBO, because Crawford, his business is done at welterweight as far as he's concerned, but he can't become undisputed at 154 without fighting you if you knock out Tim Tszyu or if you knock off Tim Tszyu first. I know it's not that easy. He'd have to be ranked by the WBO and have to move up. So, but yeah,
but I don't even think that's necessarily I think that would have been a good option if I mean you already think that Canelo's gonna beat Jermell anyways. You know what I mean?
I
So
don't count Charlo out, but yeah, I got Canelo for sure.
yeah, so and I mean I got Jermell, but that's another story. But it's just kind of like if Crawford was moving up to 154, at this point Crawford isn't really entertaining moving up to 154. You know what I mean? He's kind of like left that behind, and he's just like, yo, I'm moving up to 68. You know what I mean? So if he was just like, no, I'm going to move to 154 and wait for Charlo when he comes back down, then I'd be like, okay, that makes sense for Boots to do that. But Boots goes up, he fights and might beat or probably would beat a Tim Tszyu, who's a hell of a fighter anyways. And then what did he do from there? Maybe he had to fight a Jamel Charlo if he decides to come all the way back down to 54,
I
which
don't
I
think he
kind
is.
of anyway. Exactly. So it's still a tough spot for him, man.
It is, but and I agree with what you're saying. Canelo's the guy who has less to gain, obviously, from a Crawford fight. I mean, although he could exercise some of the Mayweather demons, right? Kind of try to, but but he might wind
Well,
up getting exercise trying to do that. So
let me ask you this: like, do you think that Canelo's legacy can be enhanced if he fought a Canelo and beat him at 168?
Canelo, if he beat Crawford at 68, with his legacy being, yeah, of course. It's hard to say if it which does more for him, beating Benavidez, who's much bigger and younger than Bud, but not nearly as accomplished pound for pound wise, or beating Bud. I think both would help him out. But I do agree with you that Crawford gets a lot more out of it than Canelo does. Crawford said, back in LA, it's the Terence Crawford era. And I got to disagree with him. I think ultimately it's more Canelo's era, right? I mean, he's had more opportunities than Crawford to fight in bigger fights. But if Crawford could manage to get Canelo in the ring with him and beat him, it is the Crawford era. He's right. He nullifies the Canelo era, and it really becomes the Crawford era. He cements himself as the best fighter post Floyd and Manny. Because right now I think it's Canelo, even though pound for pound, head to head, I'd probably give an edge toward Andre Ward and Terence Crawford, but Canelo's had a little bit better career than those guys. So, yeah. What do you think?
So what do you mean when you say that? Because if you're saying that Canelo had a better career than an Andre Ward, just gonna focus on him real quick, then why would you give Ward the edge when you're talking about like pound for pound status? Like,
I mean,
and
more just because I think one guy's more accomplished than the other doesn't mean I think he beat him head to head. And I'm saying pound for pound, same size, all things equal, I'd probably give an edge to Ward and Crawford if everyone was the same size like it should be, and a hypothetical pound for pound. But I feel like he's had more opportunities and cashed in on them for the most part. He lost to Floyd, lost to Bivol, but for the most part he's won these big fights and he's been in more of them than Dre and Crawford. So I think he's accomplished a little bit more than those guys.
yeah, I do agree with that. The only part that I don't agree with is like in terms of just like overall skills, or well, maybe not even overall skill, but if they were just like the same size, or even if they weren't the same size, man, I think if Canelo fought Andre at 175, I don't think Canelo's necessarily in his prime anymore, but I think Canelo would win that fight because the Ward that I saw 175, he wasn't the Ward at 168.
He
He
was
really.
pretty much for that rematch with Kovalev. Yeah, Alexander Brand, the first Kovalev fight, yeah, but by that rematch, Dre turned it up, I thought, and looked like vintage Super Six Dre.
I also felt like in the rematch he didn't look necessarily that good to me. And in the first fight, I thought he lost pretty clearly. I thought he lost.
I
It
thought he
wasn't like a
lost too. I covered that fight. I did think Kovalev won that fight.
yeah, I don't think it was a blowout, but I thought he lost. I thought it was a pretty obvious win for Kovalev. And even in the second fight, I felt like Kovalev's jab, that was really like his best punch during both fights. His
Definitely.
jab was killing Ward. So I don't think Ward at 75 could beat Canelo, which sounds weird, sounds kind of dumb, because I'm just saying that because I just don't think that Ward at 75 was the same guy at 68 that was at Super Six. He was a monster, and no version of Canelo is beating that dude.
I hear you. Fair enough. Fair enough. I personally think the Dre that fought Kovalev in the rematch would have still got the job done. But this is why I was excited to bring Hans on. We will disagree. And and one of these days, I'm going to get Hans to want to whoop my ass because I'm going to get him mad with how right I am. When we,
Doubt it.
so, but the chat has been heavily awaiting us talking about this. I'm reading the comments. People want to see us talk some Frank Martin, Shakur Stevenson. I love this fight. I feel like people are too low on Frank after the Artem fight, Hardatunian, the bronze medalist. I feel like he definitely won that fight. It wasn't controversial or anything, and I scored it just a little wider than most people did. I feel like Frank Martin is very, very, very formidable. Like he has fast hands, he's strong, he punches hard, he's a good athlete, got a good coach, solid footwork and defense. I'm like, if Shakur outclasses this dude, it's because Shakur really is that good. It's not because Frank Martin isn't a pretty damn good lightweight. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. If look, man, I'm actually with you with that one, man. If Shakur does what he does to pretty much everybody, which is like pitch a 12-0 shutout, 11-1, 10-2 the most, I'm gonna be like, all right, all right, man. You the man, because Frank is a hell of a fighter. But the only thing that I see with that fight, I think it's gonna be like a really terrific fight. I think Frank obviously has the edge with punching power. He's a terrific boxer on the outside. But even though I think Frank would beat an Isaac Cruz, I think Isaac Cruz would give Shakur much more problems in the ring, though, compared to Frank. That's what I think. What
Styles
about
make
you?
fights. What, you feel like Martin's power will keep Cruz at bay more?
Yeah, I feel that way. And I think with Shakur not necessarily having too much power, Frank, I mean, Cruz is the type of guy that's gonna be ball to the walls, keep coming at you, keep coming at you, keep coming at you. And it'll be like really interesting to actually see how Shakur would deal with a guy like that. Oscar Valdez was supposed to be the guy that did that, but Oscar Valdez doesn't necessarily fight like an Isaac Cruz anyway. Like he'll put on the pressure, but not to the same degree that Isaac Cruz does. But regardless, Frank versus Shakur, hell of a fight, man. Who you got?
I got Shakur. I think ultimately one thing that's going to catch up with Frank more than anything is he started at 18 and Shakur started as a little kid. And there's just something. Frank is really good for starting as late as he did because most guys that start late and can have success, they get by on their talent. And Frank has good talent, but he also has good skills. He has very good skills for a guy who started as late as he did. But you saw Artem with his Olympic pedigree gave Frank some issues. And I think that pedigree, being a thoroughbred who started at 10 years, he's got a 10-year head start on you. I know it's the pros now. That amateur shit is out the window. I know Frank punches harder than Shakur. And even I know Shakur has been made a little timid in the past by a guy like Jeremiah Nakatia. I'm not just fully convinced Shakur's going to wash Frank Martin, but I do feel like Shakur will decisively win the fight, and that pedigree will catch up to Frank Martin in this fight. What chance do you give Frank of winning?
Well, before I even answer that, how exactly do you see it just in terms of like the scorecards? Do you think it'll be like an 8-4 kind of thing? Do you think it's 10-2? How do you, because if you
I'm
say
thinking,
10,
yeah, 118, 110, 117, 111. Like
so you pretty,
117, 111.
so you pretty
9-3.
much think he's gonna kind of like outclass him basically.
He's going to be a couple steps ahead throughout most of the night, is how I'd put it. It's not, I don't think he's going to Yoshino him. I don't think he's going to Jamel Herring him. But
Gotcha.
I think he'll be a step or two ahead all night. And he has the better jab than Frank. He has a better jab than Frank. That's important
Yeah,
on the outside.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a great fight. Definitely on paper. I mean, and in the ring, it should be Shakur's best fight. Needless to say, same thing for Frank. Um, it's tough to go against Shakur, man. It's that dude is just unbelievable, man. It's it's really hard to go against him. In
I
terms of the
agree,
champ,
but there is a lot of crowning him going on. There is a lot of people, oh, he'll be Tank, he'll be Devin. I got to see those fights.
no, you're absolutely right. But I'm actually like the other way when it comes to that stuff. I'm not really crowning him. And if he was to fight Devin today, I would take Devin, to be honest with you. I would take Devin. So
I would probably take Devin at 40, but not 35. I feel like Devin's got to move up.
yeah, that's a yeah. I guess I would want to say it if Devin found a way to, cut the weight one more good time and not struggle or anything like that, and like not look like a skeleton on the scales, and he was fighting at 100%, then I would take Devin. You know what I mean? But if he's gonna struggle on the scales, then I'm gonna rock with Shakur. But I do think that Devin is a slightly better fighter than Shakur, which the chat is probably gonna murder me for that, but I just think Devin is a little bit better, man. But yeah, the chances I get Frank Martin actually winning that fight though, brother, that's that's tough, man. I'm not even sure what he's going to be able to do in terms of. Well, you know what? No, I would say that the Frank Martin that fought, the Frank Martin that fought Artem in the maybe like the last 3 or 4 rounds, that was ultra aggressive because Derek James will tell him, you gotta step on the gas. If that version starts off from the very beginning, say, look, man, I'm not boxing with you, brother. We brawling. That version of him, I give him a much better chance. But the normal version of Frank, who likes to kind of sit back, play in the high guard, kind of sit back and look cute, jab with you, I don't think he could do that with Shakur, man.
Well, who know? Hey, who knows? Who knows? Maybe Gervonta's being cryptic about a Devin Haney fight. I doubt it. I think we're likely to get Haney in pro grade, but that fight's not official, and Gervonta's talking about moving in silence. So, I mean, that is easily the biggest fight in the lightweight division. Part of me on Devin's side is a little timid to see it because I don't want any excuses. I want Devin 100% strong. I don't want another Ryan Garcia situation where a guy afterwards has to talk about how tough it was to get down to the weight in the aftermath. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I doubt we're gonna get Haney and Davis next. But Gervonta did talk about moving in silence, and
I mean, to be honest, though, if we don't get it, I mean, we probably won't get it this year. We'll probably get Program Haney, then we'll probably get Cruz and Gervonta. I kind of feel like if we don't get that Gervonta versus Devin fight by next year, we probably won't get it, man. Like Devin is he's a pretty big guy, man.
yeah.
He's almost the same size as Terence Crawford, man. I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but they're like damn near the same size, bro. Like I don't think he's gonna be at 140 for that long either. So it's gonna be tough, man.
Let me throw something else your way about this Martin and Shakur stuff, and I could already hear our good friend Kenny Buhari wanting to punch me out for even broaching the subject, but I don't always love to get into the business side. You're probably like me. You like keeping it in the ring, in between the ropes more than anything. But we do hear things and see things. So PBC has been killing ESPN when it comes to pay-per-view fights, right? ESPN had one pay-per-view this year, Haney and Lomachenko. We didn't even get an official number on how it did. Meanwhile, and I think it performed a little above expectations because that crowd was sold out at MGM. They did their thing, Haney and Loma. But other than that, no pay-per-view fights. Meanwhile, PBC has had Benavidez Plant, Tank and Ryan, Crawford-Spence, and been doing big things. Like they got Canelo and Charlo coming up. So PBC has been dusting them off in the big events, the big fights. But when you take it to network television, Showtime Championship Boxing against ESPN Top Rank cards on ESPN, I think Frank Martin's last fight did about 100 to 150,000 viewers. ESPN fight, even these fights in the middle of Shawnee, Oklahoma that no one cares about, they still get close to 500,000 viewers because someone's got ESPN on no matter what's on, right? So to be fair. Mm-hmm. But part of me wonders, PBC Showtime, they got all these funds they've had to be making from all these pay-per-views. Where's the budget for Frank Martin, Shakur Stevenson? And maybe part of me speculates, is the budget not that great at Showtime Championship Boxing? And that's a little bit of a reason why all these fights do have to go to pay-per-view, where the fans kind of foot the bill rather than the network having to allocate a budget to guarantee something to both fighters. So yeah, it's interesting. At the top in the big fights, Showtime's kicking ESPN's ass. But on the network broadcast, Showtime Championship Boxing versus ESPN Top Rank, they do much stronger ratings on ESPN. And sure enough, it's a non-pay-per-view fight. Frank Martin's going to ESPN. What do you think about all that?
I mean, to be honest, I did find it. I mean, us, hearing about the rumblings for a while and whatever about, those discussions and things like that. But I mean, I don't know about you, but in the back of my head, I'm just like, man, that fight not happening, man. Like two different sides of the street, that's not happening. And then when you kind of see that, not only is it going to happen, but it's going to happen on ESPN, it's like it does make you scratch your head a little bit. But and I'm not mad at you for saying what you said, but I'm definitely not gonna say that the budget is bad over there at Showtime, because it seems like every time anybody has anything bad to say about them and their budget or they're going under, they kill it. So
Right, they wind up making everyone look stupid. And to be fair to PBC too, I'm not trying to put them in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Y'all say we never send fighters over to the other network, and then when we do, it's because of all these negative reasons, right? So I get it. But go on.
yeah, no, it was surprising, but yeah, like I said, man, I'm not gonna doubt PBC and their budget. Um, it it does make me question why exactly they kind of sent Frank over there, though. It is a little bit odd
Well,
because
I
it
looked
kind of
at it like he's in limbo. He can't draw on Showtime Championship Boxing because those network ratings are going down. Period across the board, but especially premium cable. And I almost looked at it. I speculate, and I'm like, you're not big enough to put on pay per view, and you can't draw on Showtime Championship Boxing, right? So he's in limbo, and then we're not going to put you in there with Gervonta because you're a more dangerous fight than Cruz for less money. Cruz is, in my opinion, still a formidable opponent, a good fight, but not as dangerous as the athleticism and the length and the boxing ability as Frank Martin, who
yeah.
did do well in sparring with Tank before. I was there. So it's like, okay, we can't put you on pay per view. That's not going to make any money. And then we're struggling to get ratings on Showtime. Go ahead and go over there and go fight over there. Go for it.
Does it? All right, so let me ask you this. Because it kind of comes across like you're kind of saying that, like, what's the word I'm kind of looking for? Like, kind of like sacrificing Frank to a certain degree. Like,
No, we
all
could
right,
we could be lucky or not lucky. We could come out looking great. And Frank, and instead of everyone talking about Shakur and Tank, he could wind up upsetting Shakur, come back home to PBC Showtime, and now we got a legit pay per view fight between Tank and Frank. Tank and Frank. It even sounds nice for the WBC belt.
yeah, no, it's a good point, but it's it is a little bit weird, but it's not the first time that they've sent like a fighter to like you know a different network or anything like that. I mean, it probably doesn't happen often or as many times like fans would want to see it, but it's happened like a bunch of times,
Yeah.
man. I mean, shoot, even if you look at Andy Ruiz in 2019, going over and fighting on the zone against Anthony Joshua. I mean, he's a PBC guy, but hey, Al and them were just like, all right, man, do your thing, whatever, whatever. Even if you look at it recently, I mean, he wasn't a big name or anything like that, but Al could easily said no when you look at Robert Helenius or even like a Charles Martin, man. Like
Or a New Way and Fulton.
exactly. So I think it has happened a good amount of times. So I don't think it has anything to do with the budget. I probably just think that even with me and you, even though we're privy to like certain conversations that other people aren't, we aren't privy to everything, man. So it
Oh,
probably
I
just made
wish.
more sense for him to go, you know? Probably just made more sense, honestly.
No, it does. It does make more sense. Shakur's the A side, so go ahead. Send him over. It's a good fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I know Shakur wanted Lomachenko. I think this is better because
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
how good Loma looked against Devin and losing razor close, he still got an L. And Shakur would be fighting a fighter coming off a loss. And some of the same fans who say they'll give him credit won't, because of that reason. Once he would beat Lomachenko, so fight a fresh, undefeated, prime guy in Frank Martin, and I think it'll be hard for people to take away from this win if Shakur winds up winning in the fashion he thinks he's going to win it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I do think Frank Martin is a better fighter at this point right now than Lomachenko. I do think so. I think Lomachenko has slowed down considerably. Still a really, really good fighter, but he isn't nearly what he used to be, man. Those angles, they come a little bit slower. They don't happen as often. I just don't think he's as good of a fighter as Frank right now, man. I don't see it.
I'm more interested in Shakur and Frank right now. I'm not ready to put Frank ahead of Loma. Loma's inconsistent right now. He will look great one fight like Nakatani. He'll look okay the next fight against Comey, and then he'll look flat against Ortiz, and then he's back to looking good against Devin. So you kind of don't know which Lomachenko you're gonna get these days.
Yeah.
So kind of like Canelo with Charlo. Like I don't know if I'm gonna get a rejuvenated Canelo. There seems to be signs pointing towards that. He moves his camp to Tahoe. He's saying all the right things. I'm not injured. Or am I going to get the same old Canelo from the last 3 fights? Am I going to get Bivol, Golovkin 3, Ryder Canelo? Because Charlo might pull off the upset against that guy, but I feel like a rejuvenated Canelo, he'll be all right.
Yeah. How many times have we heard fighters say, and Canelo didn't necessarily say that he's rejuvenated, but how many times have we heard fighters say, I'm rejuvenated, I'm in the best shape of my life, I'm at my best, and then they're not. You know what I mean? But the one good thing I would say is the him moving his camp, getting that altitude. I think that should help him a lot with his stamina. So I think we will see a very, very good Canelo for sure.
Yeah, I want to save our Canelo Charlo stuff for Friday because Hans is going out on a limb like he is with Spence. He's got Charlo, isn't that right?
100%, man.
Okay.
Got him 100%, man. It's my guy, Charlo.
He's a big 54. He can move and punch at the same time. He's got some tools to pull that upset off. But I think Canelo's got to meet him halfway a little bit. Got to show up a little flat. Got to get tired by the 7th and the 8th. So we'll see.
Yeah, and definitely not going to touch on it until Friday. But for me though, I might rank Charlo higher than like anybody else on like my pound for pound list. I probably got him like number 4. Probably got him like number 4 behind Crawford, Inoue, and Usyk. Probably got him about number 4. So I think Charlo's a hell of a fighter, man. Hell of a fighter. So
I do think might not rate him quite as high. He's definitely on the pound for pound list. I thought he had the best performance of 2022 against Castano. Him and what Bam Rodriguez did to the fighter from Thailand, Srisaket Soranvis. I thought those were the 2 best performances last year. He's got my favorite style, boxer, puncher. He's one of the funnest trash talkers in the sport. So, we'll see. We'll see. But I do still favor Canelo. We'll save that more for Friday, that discussion. But yeah. Let me read a couple people in the chat real quick, give them some love. Boxing analyst asks, is this guy a boxer? Hans, are you a boxer?
I mean, well, I fought wild during the amateurs. No, just a journalist, man. I mean, boxed a little bit on my free days, but just a journalist, man.
Got you. Let's say, give you some shout outs to Straight Right, boxing analyst, Heaven Williams, Tommy, my man, who else we got? Robert Jackson, Joe the G, Jose Rodriguez, Straight Right, The Juice, Tay Day. Tay Day's always in here. Glenn Chaos is always in here. Shout out to Glenn Chaos. Shout out to Ashley Schaefer, Kia, always a great supporter in the chat. Jonathan Calloway, Boxing Affair. We gotta get to everybody, Hans. We got love in the chat.
Sure. For sure, do it, man. I ain't complaining. Do you think?
Boston, shout out to my man Boston's. So if there's anything you guys want to shoot our way, because we're gonna head out in just a moment here. I do got a doctor's appointment in about an hour. I gotta make it to. I can't miss this one, Hans.
Yeah, I ain't mad at it.
We're getting old. We're getting older. How old are you, Hans?
33, man.
Yeah, see, you're a year older than me, but that black doesn't crack. My shit is starting to just a little bit.
My shit never cracks, brother. Come on, never cracks.
God bless you. I used to have a good lineup myself, Hans. I used to have a lineup in high school. I had a taper fade.
I can't even imagine that, brother. I'm calling cap. Ain't no way. I can't imagine you with a taper fade, man. I'm calling cap.
I went to the east side to get my lineup every 3 weeks and everything. What was it, an 8? I got it at an 8. But I can't. MySpace is too slow. I can't pull up the old pictures of me with the taper fade from MySpace.
That's what I'm gonna need you to do. Unless you pulling up the picture and sending it to my phone, I'm not believing it, man. So me and the chat know you capping right now, man. There's no way.
I'll find it for the next episode. I'll find it for Friday. I'll find it. We got a quick super chat. Someone said Sean Zittel versus Doug Fisher, the fight. Sean in 2 rounds. I got love for Doug. I'm not mad at Doug about anything, but I don't know. How do you pick that fight, Hans? You could be objective. You don't have to rock with me just because we're both on FightHype.
I gotta take Sean, man. I gotta take Sean, man. 100%.
I do have some youth on Doug.
100%, a lot of youth. What is he, like 50?
He is, but he's still sharp. Still sharp. I'm talking about him like he's 80. Yeah, very sharp guy.
Yeah, he is, but I'm rocking Michelle.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Albert Bell versus Emmanuel Navarrete. Navarrete. I got love for Albert, but
Now Albert's good. He's a very good fighter, but Navarrete, you ever seen that dude fight? That dude is unreal, man.
facts. And even better than I thought. Did you know he was going to beat Valdez? I was foolish. I picked Valdez.
Sure did. I took Navarrete, took him off rip. So I knew he was gonna win, man. Just too much punches, too many weird angles. I that's the guy that I want to see Shakur fight, honestly. I think that's the guy who will give Shakur all types of issues, man. All types of issues. I don't think he'll win, but that's a fight where Shakur is gonna leave the ring a little bruised a little bit, man. That's what I think.
Yeah, I always obviously respected Navarrete, and my gut was kind of telling me Valdez been in some wars, bro. He probably not going to win this one, but I thought, oh, he's got quicker hands. He likes to throw that uppercut from too far out. Valdez shorter left hook could punch inside that up. None of that shit happened, and but he turned out to be even more crafty than I thought with his distance and his feet and he didn't overly rely on the uppercut. It's like he knew Valdez was going to look for that uppercut. He mixed up his punches a lot more creatively.
He did, and it kind of got to a point where it looked like Valdez, and instead of like countering or anything like that, he was just like trying to defend himself, man. Like, all right, man, where these punches is coming at from now, man? Like, god damn. And then once it got to that point, it was like, yeah, Navarrete got it in bag. I thought the scorecards were a little too wide, but I wasn't too mad at it though.
Yeah, I think I have a feeling he could maybe be the first guy along the way of Inoue moving up all these weights who gives him a really tough fight. I think Navarrete. I think Inoue takes care of everybody at 22 and 26. I probably even give him the edge over Navarrete, but that's the speed bump. That's the now wait a minute, you're in a fight in this one. That motherfucker's big and can fight.
What do you think about because a lot of people mentioned Brandon Figueroa. What do you think about him?
Nah, he gets hit too much. He gets hit too much. He doesn't have Navarrete's footwork and creativity. He's like Margarito. He's big, comes forward, he's right there. I think he just doesn't he doesn't get out of the way of anything and doesn't change up his distance like Navarrete. That's not a tough fight for Inoue in my opinion.
I agree. I do think that Navarrete, I think that'll probably be his toughest fight, but it's between him and Robeisy Ramirez, man. I got a lot of respect for that guy's skills, man. His skills are very, very good.
I like Robeisy, man, but he's super dependent on that left hand. Like he's very straight left hand, straight left hand. You know, like if you could figure out the straight left hand, you're gonna beat him.
Yeah, but I mean, when I look at 126, uh, ain't nobody up there gonna give him that many issues, man. Ain't nobody else up there gonna give him that many issues at 126, man. 122, Tapales, no disrespect to Tapales, but he should just like go to Inoue's house and just give him the belts now. He should just go there and give him the belts, man. I don't see what he's gonna possibly do to beat that guy, man, at all. So what do you think is Inoue's cap anyway in terms of weight?
30. I think he'll get beat at 35.
Okay.
I think he's going to become the third sixth division champ in men's boxing outside of De La Hoya and Pacquiao. I think he'll get to 30. Someone mentioned Raymond Ford at 126. I like Raymond Ford at 126. I do like he is a good featherweight on the rise.
I definitely forgot about him. I guess I was just thinking about more like the world champions.
Yeah, he's not champion. He's gonna be.
Yeah, Raymond Ford. I think he has like an intercontinental belt, which doesn't really count. But yeah, he's a hell of a fighter though, for real. I think he'll give him some issues. Not now, but maybe in like a year or two.
Yeah, Jersey stand up. Let him get to his prime before he would fight the monsters. Let him develop into his own prime first before you throw him in there with someone like Inoue. But quickly, I got a question that's trying to get us in some trouble. From where was this man at? Ken Everett keeps asking, what do you think about Victor Conti in Bud's camp? As you know, this PED talk gets me in a lot of fucking trouble. I'll let you go. I'll see if I want to even touch it. Go for it.
I want to make sure I'm not controversial. Do I really care about being controversial? Not really. But I always think it's. I mean, look, I think Victor Conte is cool. I've seen him at a bunch of fights. Spoke to him. Talks about like everything. You know what I mean? So he's like a super cool guy. I always find it a little weird when people like associate themselves with him because it's like, I mean, his history, so it's kind of hard to you always. I don't know about you, but I always kind of look at a fighter, at least give them at least a little bit of a side eye, like, why are you associating with this dude? You know what I mean? But it's kind of tough to say. Bud has never popped for anything before. He's a super clean athlete, so I'm not gonna sit here and like chastise the guy or anything like that. I do think it's a weird mix, but like I said, he's always been a clean athlete, and until I'm proven wrong, I'm cool with it, man. That's who you want to rock with, then go for it.
I do understand always some people raising their eyebrows because the man was once the biggest steroid dealer in the United States, got convicted for it. So I get it. I'll just say what I said during that Inoue debacle that got taken out of context. Nothing would surprise me. Not just boxing, elite level professional sports, the NFL, the NBA, baseball, boxing. Nothing would surprise me, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can agree. I can't remember the last time somebody popped for something, and I was like, really like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. But yeah, and it's not really like a knock on them, and not trying to like say anybody guilty or anything like that.
Well,
But
put yourself in their shoes. What if, in fact, behind closed doors, everyone is taking it?
yeah,
That'll make someone who normally wouldn't take it take it.
yeah.
I feel like there's a chance that a large percentage of athletes on PEDs are taking it just to have a level playing field.
I mean, no, it's a good point, to be honest with you. It's a really good point. I mean, shoot, if I was a boxer, I'd be on it, man. I ain't even gonna lie.
You
I'd,
would? You
I'd be
would?
on. If they told me I gotta fight Sean, I say no more. Let me.
Nah, they don't even do that. That shit is archaic. They got like fancy shit you just rub on like ointment or something. I know. No, probably for the heavy duty shit, you might still have to shoot up something. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm trying to tell you, man. Whatever I gotta do, I'm doing it, brother. You can bust me all you want, man. I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
Victor Conti said, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
I ain't mad at him, man. I ain't mad at him, man.
So, hey, BT is in the chat. He said Hans is capping. You know you were heartbroken in caps about Bumgardner popping. Is that true?
That's my ah, that's my lady, man. That's my lady, man. She is.
One of those
Ooh,
things.
Ben got me. Wait a minute, yo. She is so beautiful, man. Oh my gosh, man. I try to be so professional when I'm around her, but the moment she retired, brother, I'm shooting my shot from half court, man. I'm telling you, man.
I think as long as you keep getting the lineups every week, you got a real chance at her, brother. I think so.
I mean, she in Detroit though. You know how them brothers get down in Detroit, man.
I
Like
know they got the buffs. They got the Royce the 5'9" sunglasses that look so cool. It's hard to
exactly. It's a
compete
little
with.
tough. Yeah, it's kind of tough, man.
But you're from New York, brother. Like, come on, man. No one's flyer than us. We're from New York.
I mean, look, man, I didn't want to, I was trying to be humble, but then again, I remembered I'm not really a humble guy. So you're right. So hopefully I'll catch her in New York. Hopefully.
So, but we will close on that. Ken Everett says, "I salute you for being honest, giving us your opinion. You got it, brother. Try to keep the PED questions to a minimum. Me and Hans actually want to be in boxing and interview fighters. We don't want to just talk. So don't get us caught up, chat.
Please.
No, but Hans, thank you so much for joining me today, brother. I really look forward to touching base with you again. Hopefully Friday. I don't want to say for sure Friday because we got to make sure everyone's schedule is all in point. But should everything be good to go, I look forward to really talking Canelo Charlo and Haney versus Prograis with you on Friday. I hope you got time for that, brother. What's it looking like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to be free Friday. Probably just, like I said, if I'm not in the gym, writing up some articles for boxing scene or trying to set up these interviews with these fighters. So yeah, man, if you tell me you need me, I drop everything, man. I'll be there. So just let me know. We're gonna make it happen, brother.
All right, bro. I'll pin you down in between all the girlies out in Brooklyn that you got going on and chasing and the Alicia Bumgardner,
I mean,
all that.
I mean, look, man, I walk outside my